The opportunity nobody wanted. Most people believe that money is required before wealth can be created. They believe they need capital, connections, education, luck, investors, special talent, or some extraordinary opportunity before they can change their lives. That belief destroys more dreams than poverty ever could. Because the truth is simple. The majority of fortunes did not begin with money. They began with observation. They began with someone noticing value where everyone else saw nothing. And this is the story of that principle. Not a story about luck, not a story about inheritance, not a story about privilege. A story about how wealth often starts in places nobody wants to look. Imagine a young boy living in a forgotten rural town. A place so isolated that opportunity seemed impossible. The roads were dusty, the houses were old. Most people spent their entire lives working from sunrise until sunset, only to survive another day. His parents were hard-working people, honest people, the kind of people who sacrificed everything and still struggled financially. The boy watched them every day. He watched exhaustion become normal. He watched effort produce very little reward. And although he respected them deeply, he noticed something important. Hard work alone was not creating wealth. That realization stayed in his mind. Many people work hard. Very few become wealthy. There had to be something else. There had to be another variable. At 15 years old, he owned almost nothing. No savings, no business, no equipment, no advantages. Yet one thought refused to leave his mind. There must be a way. That question became an obsession. And often, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your future. Most people ask, "Why am I unlucky?" Successful people ask, "Where is the opportunity everyone else is missing?" One day, while walking near a dirt road, something unusual happened. A truck appeared. Vehicles rarely passed through that area. Curious, he approached. Inside was a businessman searching for cattle hides. Leather. Something considered worthless by local villagers. People threw it away. Some burned it. Others left it for animals. Nobody thought it had value. The businessman was disappointed. He expected to buy hides. Instead, he discovered that people were discarding them. Before leaving, he casually mentioned something that changed everything. He would return in 2 months. That single sentence created an opportunity invisible to everyone except one person, the young boy. Notice something important. The opportunity was not hidden. Everyone heard the same information. Everyone had access to the same reality. But only one person recognized its potential. This is one of the most important wealth lessons in existence. Opportunities are rarely secret. Most people simply ignore them. The boy immediately started thinking differently. He no longer saw waste. He saw inventory. He no longer saw trash. He saw future income. The physical world had not changed. Only his perception had, and perception is often the beginning of wealth creation. From that day forward, he became obsessed with collecting hides. He walked from farm to farm, house to house, village to village. People laughed. Some thought he was crazy. Others mocked him openly. But criticism is usually strongest when people cannot see what you see. Most individuals judge actions based on current appearances. Strategic thinkers judge actions based on future outcomes. The hides smelled terrible. They were dirty, heavy, difficult to transport. Yet every hide represented something powerful, potential. And potential is invisible to those who lack vision. This is why most people miss opportunities. They focus on present discomfort instead of future reward. The boy endured rejection constantly. Some people refused to help. Others insulted him. Many believed he was wasting his time. But something fascinating happens when a person becomes focused on a goal. They stop listening to opinions from people who have never achieved it. That mindset separated him from the crowd. As the collection grew, new problems appeared. Storage, weather, transportation, preservation. Many hides became damaged. Some nearly became worthless. The process was harder than expected. And here lies another lesson. Every opportunity arrives disguised as a problem. Most people see only the problem. Entrepreneurs see the opportunity hidden behind it. Weeks passed, then months. Finally, the truck returned. The businessman was shocked. A mountain of hides waited for him. The young boy had kept his promise. Now came another lesson: negotiation. The businessman inspected the hides and immediately lowered the price. Some were damaged, some were imperfect. He offered less than expected. The boy felt anger. He felt frustration. He felt the desire to walk away. But emotion and business rarely work well together. The ability to control emotions during negotiations often determines financial outcomes. Instead of reacting emotionally, he accepted the deal. Not because it was perfect, because it was progress. And progress is more valuable than pride. When the money finally touched his hands, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in his life, he realized wealth was not magic. Money was not mysterious. Money was simply the result of solving a problem for someone else. That realization changed everything. Most people spend their lives chasing money directly. Successful people chase value. Money follows value. The young boy returned home carrying more money than he had ever seen. His family was shocked. His father even questioned where it came from. Because sudden success often creates suspicion, especially among people who have never experienced it. But the money was real, earned honestly, created from something everyone else ignored. And that night the family enjoyed something simple: fresh bread, a small luxury, yet it tasted different. Not because the bread was special, because it represented possibility. For the first time, the boy understood something that would shape the rest of his life. The size of your bank account is often determined by your ability to recognize value before everyone else does. The world rewards people who solve problems. The world rewards people who see opportunities. The world rewards people who act while others hesitate. And this was only the beginning, because the first money he earned would eventually lead him toward a much bigger realization. The greatest fortunes are not built by collecting resources. They are built by controlling what happens next. The first payment changed something inside him. Not because it made him rich. It didn't. The money was modest. But it proved something far more valuable. It proved that opportunity could be turned into income. And once a person experiences that reality, they never see the world the same way again. Most people believe money comes from jobs. A smaller group understands money comes from business. But very few realize that true wealth comes from controlling value. The young man continued collecting hides. The process became familiar. Find the hides, store them, wait for the buyer, get paid, repeat. Month after month. The income improved. Life became slightly easier. The family could buy better food. The house became more comfortable. For many people, that would have been enough. But he noticed something strange. The buyer always seemed wealthier than everyone else. The buyer arrived in a truck. The buyer negotiated prices. The buyer controlled the transaction. The buyer appeared to make far more money than the people doing the hardest work. That observation planted a dangerous question inside his mind. Why? Why was the person buying the hides becoming richer than the people collecting them? Where did the real profit go? Most people never ask this question. They focus on earning money. They never investigate where the largest margins exist. But wealth is often hidden inside that question. Where does the biggest profit actually happen? One day, curiosity pushed him to ask, "What happens to the hides after you buy them?" The traders laughed. Some joked. Some avoided answering. Eventually, someone explained. The hides were processed, turned into leather. The leather was transformed into products: wallets, belts, bags, accessories. Items sold for many times the value of the raw material. That information hit him like lightning. For the first time, he understood something critical. The person selling the raw material earns the least. The person controlling the finished product earns the most. This principle applies almost everywhere. A farmer earns less than a food brand. A miner earns less than a jewelry company. A coffee grower earns less than a coffee chain. A content creator often earns less than the platform. The closer you move toward the final customer, the larger the profits become. That idea refused to leave his mind. He began studying everything, not in classrooms, not through books, through observation. The oldest business school in human history. Reality. Whenever he visited larger towns, he paid attention. He watched merchants. He watched craftsmen. He watched negotiations. He watched how products were displayed, how prices were set, how customers behaved. Most people walk through life looking. Few people walk through life observing. The difference is enormous. Looking gathers images. Observation gathers intelligence. Eventually, he made a decision, a risky decision, a frightening decision. He would stop thinking like a collector. He would start thinking like a producer. The problem was obvious. He had no experience, no equipment, no mentor, no money to waste. Failure seemed almost guaranteed. But there is a hidden rule that successful people understand. Progress rarely begins with confidence. It begins with action despite uncertainty. He bought a few old tools, cheap, worn out, almost useless. But they were enough to begin. His first attempts were terrible. The cuts were uneven. The stitching was weak. The designs looked amateur. Some products broke apart completely. Others looked embarrassing. Every mistake cost him time. Every failure hurt. Every ruined piece of leather represented lost effort. Many nights he considered quitting. The old business was safer. Collecting hides was predictable. Creating products was difficult. This is where most people retreat. They choose familiarity over growth, comfort over opportunity, security over expansion, and then they spend years wondering why nothing changes. The young man kept going, not because he enjoyed failure, because he understood something important. Every expert was once incompetent. Every master was once a beginner. Every successful entrepreneur once produced something terrible. Improvement is purchased with mistakes. There is no other payment method. Slowly his skills improved. One wallet became acceptable, then another, then another. The quality increased, not dramatically, gradually, the way real progress always happens. One day he gathered enough courage to travel to a larger town and try selling his products. The experience was humiliating. People ignored him. Some barely looked at the merchandise. Others dismissed him immediately. Hours passed. Nothing sold. His confidence started disappearing. A familiar voice entered his mind. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he should go back. Maybe he was aiming too high. Every ambitious person eventually hears that voice. The difference is not hearing it. The difference is refusing to obey it. Late in the day, something happened. A customer stopped, examined a wallet, asked questions, then purchased it. One sale. A single sale. From a financial perspective, it was insignificant. From a psychological perspective, it was life-changing, because evidence destroys doubt. He now knew someone was willing to pay for something he created. The market had spoken, and the market's opinion matters more than personal fears. He returned home carrying a different kind of confidence, not arrogance, proof. The next products were better. The next sales came faster. Gradually, he stopped collecting hides for other people. Now the hides served his own business, his own products, his own future. Yet a new challenge was waiting, a challenge that destroys countless entrepreneurs. Trust. Not everyone in business is honest. Not everyone keeps promises. Not everyone plays fairly. One day a well-dressed merchant approached him. The merchant praised the products, complimented the quality, spoke confidently, offered opportunity, offered growth, offered bigger sales. Then made a proposal. "Leave all your products with me. I'll sell them. Come back tomorrow. I'll pay you more than anyone else." The offer sounded attractive. The merchant appeared professional, trustworthy, successful. The young craftsman wanted to believe him, so he did. He handed over everything. Days of work, weeks of effort, months of improvement. The merchant disappeared. No payment, no products, nothing. The loss was devastating. Not financially, psychologically. He felt foolish, embarrassed, angry, humiliated. But every entrepreneur eventually pays tuition. Some pay it to universities, others pay it directly to reality. Reality is usually more expensive. That experience taught him a lesson worth far more than the products he lost. Trust should never replace verification. Hope is not a business strategy. Promises are not payment. From that day forward, he developed standards. If someone wanted the product, they paid. If someone made promises, they proved them. If someone talked big, he looked at actions instead of words. That single change protected him from future losses. And over time, something remarkable happened. People started treating him differently. Not because he became richer, because he became more professional. The market respects competence. The market respects consistency. The market respects standards. And those standards were preparing him for a much larger transformation. He no longer thought like a poor boy collecting discarded hides. He no longer thought like a laborer. He no longer thought like a victim of circumstance. He had started thinking like an owner, and ownership changes everything. Because once you stop selling your labor and start owning value, your entire future begins to shift. The next phase would teach him the most powerful lesson of all. Building wealth is not about making money. It is about building systems that continue producing value long after the work is done.